and all that. That's called freedom of speech, and that's what this hearing title is, protecting speech. So all I can say is, look, we should all join hands and denouncing and whatever words you want to use about violent extremism of all stripes. And I think we can all agree on that. So to constantly accuse Democrats of not caring about that is really, I can only say that you aren't listening. So I hope this is the end of this hearing, Mr. Chairman, and that we don't have to listen to any more of your rhetorical speeches. Thank you very much. I'm leaving.
Well, I appreciate the, as always, kind and uplifting words of Senator Hirono. And I would also note that throughout her remarks, she still did not say a negative word about Antifa, nor has any Democrat here. They instead engage in a political game where they depend. You're welcome to say something negative about Antifa right now.
I think that I've covered the subject quite well. You are not listening.
Okay. She declined to speak, so that is the position of the Democratic Party. I would note also that of the 7 Democratic senators who spoke, not a one of them apologized for or denounced multiple Democrats calling law enforcement officers Nazis, stormtroopers, and Gestapo, to be fair. I have not heard the word Nazi, but stormtrooper was Nancy Pelosi and Gestapo was another Democratic leader.
Welcome back to Verdict with Ted Cruz. I'm Michael Knowles. I'm sitting here, of course, with the senator. Senator, you have not yet chased me out of this room, but I notice you seem to have chased your Democratic colleague out of the Senate yesterday.
Well, Michael, I don't like what you're saying, so I'm going to need to get up and run away and leave now. You're very frightening, and you're causing me to hyperventilate.
Yes, because I'm posing these very difficult questions to you, such as, are you willing to condemn Antifa?
So it was really crazy. So I chaired a hearing on Antifa violence, and I, as you know, chair the Constitution Subcommittee of Senate Judiciary Committee, and so the hearing was focused on the right in the First Amendment peaceably to assemble. And by the way, if you remember back, do you remember Chris Cuomo on CNN saying, where is it written that protesting and gathering has to be peaceable? And it's kind of like, well, okay, there's this thing called the First Amendment.
It's in the Constitution.
The right of the people peaceably to assemble. It's right there. First Amendment, part of the Bill of Rights, attached to the... Well, you got to understand, CNN, they don't have copies of the Constitution. So you can understand you wouldn't expect Cuomo to be familiar with it.
I don't know that it's even allowed in the building, frankly.
I think that's probably right. Well, the hearing was on free speech and the right peaceably to assemble and how radical anarchists and Marxists are taking over these protests and engaging in rioting and violence. And so we had testimony, and in the entire course of it, so we had testimony originally from the Department of Justice and Department of Homeland Security. Ken Cuccinelli, the acting deputy secretary, testified, did a fabulous job. But 7 different Democratic senators participated in the hearing. Not a single one of them was willing to say even a single word critical about Antifa. They wouldn't, and it's, I got to say, look, I'll give the Dems credit. They have a message discipline. Like when a talking point goes out, I don't know who it is.
Is that what it is, though? I mean, they basically, they get the talking points, they stick to it?
They repeat the same words over and over again. So, for example, all of them called the DHS law enforcement officers secret police. That was clearly the talking point. So Mazie Hirono is the ranking Democrat on the committee. She plays this video, I think from the New York Times, where it refers to them as unidentified officers. And literally the video playing, they have in giant yellow all caps letters the words police. Like that's not unidentified.
They are identified. There's no question about that.
But it doesn't stop them. So they're talking points, and so their talking points on Antifa, on the terrorists, they just scream right-wing violence, white supremacists, white supremacists. And the difference, by the way, look, I'm white supremacists, Nazis, KKK. Those guys are racist idiots. Lock them all up. If they commit violence, lock them up and throw them in jail.
This is the point. This was what was so shocking to me when I was watching this clip of you talking to Senator Hirono. When some fringe lunatic guy who maybe he associates with the right, and he comes out and says something bigoted, all the right disavows, condemns, takes 2 seconds, nobody worries about it. But none of your Democratic colleagues,
Zero,
not one, could condemn Antifa or the Marxists or the other end. I mean, it seems so simple to me. Why couldn't they do it?
So not only that, but also we've seen their rhetoric. So Nancy Pelosi called federal police officers stormtroopers. Jim Clyburn, one of the leading Democrats in the House, called them Gestapo. Like, calling cops Nazis.
Yeah.
And not a single Democrat, I mean, repeatedly that was called out. Not one of the Democratic senators would walk away from it. And so at the end of the hearing, Mazie got up and stormed out. And she's like, well, no, I've condemned violence. I'm like, well, no, not from Antifa, not from the left. You insist the only violence that occurs is on the right. Facts be damned. Do you know what Ken Cuccinelli told us at the hearing?
What?
He said there have been, in the last 6 months, 277 officer injuries in Portland.
Wow.
And 277.
So Ken Cuccinelli, Deputy Secretary of Department of Homeland Security.
And he testified, and he testified, in fact, so they're throwing rocks at the officers. They're throwing frozen water bottles. In fact, Ken had a frozen water bottle with him just to illustrate.
Huh.
They hit an officer in the head with a sledgehammer. They're bringing knives. They're bringing guns. They're throwing gasoline and lighting gasoline on fire. They're firing mortars with commercial fireworks.
They have those lasers.
Well, and you and I, so we did an interview with the Secretary of Homeland Security, Chad Wolf, and we did it at DHS, which was pretty cool. But while we're doing the interview, you and I are sitting there. Into the room walks Ken Cuccinelli.
You know, in the moment, I couldn't quite tell. Obviously, the lighting was a little dark. So I said, who is this guy who's kind of walking in? If I'd known it was him, I would have said he should come right on the show.
And if I'd have seen him, he came in behind me, so I didn't see him. If I'd have seen him, I said, Cooch, come on over, pull up a chair. Because he was coming to testify that afternoon.
And he had a prop.
He had, so the commercial laser that they're using.
Yeah.
I have to admit, when I read about the sort of lasers to the eyes, that struck me as a little bogus.
Because we've always had little laser pointers, right? You chase your cat around with it.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, isn't that all of Twitter is cat videos?
Yeah.
I think that's the entirety of the internet.
Yeah.
But what was interesting is these commercial ones. So Cooch had one of those. He said, "Here, hold your hand out." So I did, and he points it, and in like 1 second, it takes about a second, and then you go, "Oh crap!" and you yank your hand. I mean, it burns.
Well, I don't think that you were necessarily foolish when he says put your hand out. You did it, but then I saw it burned you, and then you tell me, "Hey, Michael, put your hand out," and I, like a fool, I put my hand out and I get it burned by Cuccinelli's laser.
Look, this is basic human instinct. You know, you have like spoiled milk, and you go, "Oh, this tastes terrible. Here, try some."
Right.
Like, is
right.
that?
But it's serious. I mean, you can light a piece of paper on fire with those lasers, and this is the kind of thing that's being shined in the cops' eyes.
And Cuccinelli testified over 30 officers have had eye damage where they shine it in their eyes, and it's a risk of permanent blindness. And in fact, what they're doing is they have these shields, and they get up right close at them to shine the laser right in their eye. And try to blind them.
Yeah. And one thing you did very well at the hearing, and for some reason I noticed these clips aren't going around. I don't know why the press isn't covering it. You went through with great specificity who these people are, the organized anarchists, the organized Marxists who are behind these riots all over the country. You know, I think the Democrats, they've outright denied that Antifa even exists. Jerry Nadler the other day pretended it's not real. You went through those specifically. These are real Marxists. These are real anarchists.
Well, and you take two different groups that are worth focusing on. One, Antifa, and we heard a lot of testimony. Antifa is profoundly violent. They engage in terrorism. They encourage terrorism. They train people to engage in this violence. They're also profoundly anti-free speech. They use violence as a way to silence speech they disagree with.
Yeah.
And these are concerted. You know, Andy Ngo, the journalist, he testified at the hearing about being violently beaten up. By the way, they call him a white supremacist, as he described. He's the son of a Vietnamese immigrant. He's Vietnamese and gay. He's not your like.
He is the most Vietnamese white supremacist I've ever met. There's no question.
But you know what? They call Ben Shapiro a Nazi. So never
true.
let facts get in the way
Right.
of their attacking rhetoric.
Yeah.
But, you know.
So you had the anarchists of Antifa, and you had Marxists as well, as you explained yesterday.
Well, and I talked at some length about Black Lives Matter. Now, it's important to understand the difference. The phrase Black Lives Matter.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Is indisputably true.
It's simple,
period. The end. And let me actually take a digression for a minute. I think most Republicans are morons when it comes to talking about Black Lives Matter.
Huh.
Because when you have someone say, does Black Lives Matter? You get all these Republicans, no, all lives matter.
Yeah.
Why can't you just say yes?
Right,
If you ask me, yes,
it's
Black Lives Matter.
Well, it's like Mazie Hirono's answer, right? Will you condemn Antifa? I condemn extremism. Say, right, but what about specifically Antifa? It's a very simple question.
Like, absolutely, Black lives are precious and they matter immensely. And the reason is every life is created by God.
Right.
But you don't, you see Republicans like terrified to say that.
Yeah.
Because we're in such a weird politicized world. But,
well, and also because there's this organization, which is very different.
Well, and that's, so the statement Black Lives Matter is a truism. Overwhelming majority of Americans agree with it. It should be everyone.
Basically everyone, I think, agrees with that.
But there's something very separate from the organization that is called Black Lives Matter. And this, there's an article I entered into the record of the hearing from the Washington Examiner that gives some of the history of the organization. So it was founded by three radicals who describe themselves in their own words as trained Marxists. So they are, this is not me calling them Marxists.
Right.
They tell you they're Marxists. They tell you they've studied Marx and Lenin and Mao.
I mean, there's a video of Patrice Kalors, who's one of the co-founders. She says, Alicia and I, or Alicia Garza, another co-founder, are trained Marxists. And the third co-founder, Opal Tometi, is seen smiling in photographs with the communist dictator of Venezuela. They're not hiding this sort of thing.
So not only that, one of the founders of the organization Black Lives Matter describes as her mentor Angela Davis. Now Angela Davis, I don't have to call her a communist. She tells you she was a communist. She was not once but twice the vice presidential nominee of the Communist Party of the United States.
Right.
So she's an avowed communist Marxist, and by the way, is rabidly anti-Semitic, rabidly anti-Israel. Someone else Susan Rosenberg. Now, who is Susan Rosenberg? Susan Rosenberg is the vice chair of the board of directors of Thousand Currents. Now, what is Thousand Currents? Thousand Currents is what is funding the organization Black Lives Matter. Now, who is Susan Rosenberg also? She was part of the revolutionary military group known as the May 19th Communist Organization, affiliated with the Weather Underground. She was convicted of weapons and explosives charges and sentenced to 58 years in prison. So she's a convicted terrorist. By the way, she was pardoned by Bill Clinton on the last day of his presidency. It was one of those midnight parties.
She and a million other people were pardoned at the end of the administration.
So she was at Rosenberg in the 1960s and 70s, was on the FBI's most wanted list. She was caught in 1984 unloading hundreds of pounds of dynamite and weapons, including a submachine gun. So we're not talking like a sort of mild little rebel.
It's not just a frozen water bottle either.
It is not. So Garza, one of the Black Lives Matter founders, talks about how convicted cop killer Asanta Shakur is one of her main inspirations. Now, Shakur is right now today on the FBI's most wanted list. There's $1 million reward for Shakur's information leading to her capture. She's believed to be hiding in Cuba. And she was a member of the Black Liberation Army, another terrorist organization.
Yeah.
She's wanted for escaping from prison, and she was in prison serving a life sentence for murdering a police officer. And the police officer, an individual named Warner Forster, was shot execution style point blank. This wasn't an accidental. This was, and by the way, it's not like these folks are just kind of, okay, we're all like vaguely know each other. So Cullors, one of the three founders, wrote a memoir entitled when they call you a terrorist, a Black Lives Matter memoir. So it's like what we're all about. The foreword is written by Angela Davis, and the epigraph is written by Shakur, the cop killer.
Wow.
So
they don't tell you this in the mainstream media. In fact, I had never heard that, and I've actually done some research into the BLM organization.
So Angela Davis, you want to talk about the anti-Semitism of Angela Davis for a minute? She was asked, so she was a big apologist for the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
Look, communists, that's what they did. So she was traveling to Moscow, and she was asked if she would speak up for the Jewish prisoners of conscience in the gulags in the Soviet Union. And her answer was, and this is a quote, that they are all Zionist fascists and opponents of socialism. And so therefore she would urge that they be kept in prison. Not only would she not speak up with them, she'd be like, lock them up. By the way, Angela Davis just recently endorsed Joe Biden for president.
That's right. And she said he would be easy to manipulate.
Black Lives Matter itself refers to Israel as an apartheid state committing genocide. That's their terms. But what does Black Lives Matter stand for? If you go look at their website, their number one priority is abolishing the police nationwide.
Yeah, which is, by the way, according to Gallup polling, opposed by 81% of Black Americans. It was either Gallup or it was a YouGov poll, but it just came out.
And if Black Lives Matter succeeded in their stated objective of abolishing police, the result would be many, many more Black lives are lost.
Of course.
Because you would have many more murders, many more rapes, many more assaults, which sadly we're seeing in big cities right now as police are being held back. But without law enforcement, those living in the most high crime neighborhoods they're victims, and far too many of the victims of crime are African American, and Black Lives Matter is essentially abandoning him to that. Not only that, Black Lives Matter, the organization, calls for abolishing the nuclear family. Like moms and dads.
Could you say that again? It's very
like they explicit, and go read their own website. Don't take my word for it. That's what they're advocating for. Now let me tell you. And by the way, they also call for a white boycott. They say boycott white corporations, that nobody should buy anything from white corporations. Now, one of the things I talked about at the hearing yesterday, we're seeing all these companies, particularly tech companies, that are wanting to virtue signal, who are giving millions and millions of dollars to this organization, Black Lives Matter. Among those tech companies that are doing it are Microsoft, Amazon. I went and listed a whole bunch, but pause for a second and think. Look, Microsoft's largest shareholder is a guy named Bill Gates.
Yeah.
Last time I checked, Bill Gates, a white guy.
Yeah.
So Microsoft is literally donating money to an organization calling for people to boycott Microsoft. Like saying, do not purchase any products from anything Bill Gates. Amazon's giving him money.
Yeah.
Jeff Bezos is a white guy. Amazon is funding a group saying, don't buy anything from Amazon. And look, you want to support social justice? Great, wonderful. Go support school choice. Go give scholarships for inner city kids to go to excellent schools. There are all sorts of things you can do. But the problem is because people are terrified of contradicting the indisputably true statement that Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, that they'll support this awful organization.
And they are funding explicit Marxists who want to destroy capitalism, destroy free enterprise.
Destroy the family. Speaking of our friends who are stuck at home, a number of them are writing in questions for the mailbag from Balaam's Donkey. This is a Twitter account. I don't think it's his Christian name. What can I do personally to stop this madness? I'm not famous. I'm not important. I'm not even a good debater, but I know what I believe. Give me specifics.
Speak. Speak to your friends, speak to your family. And you know what? You are famous, Balaam's donkey, because you've got, with social media, every one of us is publisher now.
I know. He's also on a big podcast right now.
Like every one of us can speak out. Mm-hmm. And I actually tell, like, I don't know how old Balaam's donkey is, but I talk to a lot of, high school kids, college kids. Yeah. And when it comes to defending freedom, why does freedom matter? I say, look, you can do it much better. I'm 49 years old. How many 15-year-olds are going to listen to me?
Yeah.
I'd much rather have a 15-year-old say, why does it matter to be free? Use your voice to explain why freedom matters, why free speech matters. Look, the left are intolerant, totalitarian, and oppressive. So speaking out, using humor, telling stories.
And on that point, knowing what you say, I mean, Balaam's donkey says he knows what he believes, and I believe him. But I think some people, they want to get out there and argue their point of view. The other side of this is study the facts. I mean, read up, know what your point of view is so that you can articulate why you support your country, why you like your freedoms, why you like your rights.
And help educate others. And look, left and right tend to communicate differently. Too many people on the right communicate like accountants.
Yes.
Just
drives me
facts
crazy.
And numbers and a green eye shade.
Yeah.
And the left, they go for the heart.
Yeah.
I mean, their argument is he wants to eat your children.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they say.
Right.
We got to do both. It's why stories are, when you and I did the pod with John Voight.
Yeah.
And we were talking to him about like storytelling as a natural skill. And actually, this may have been afterwards where we were enjoying a cigar together.
Oh yeah.
And I think this was after the pod, and we were talking with John, and I said, look, storytelling is a natural human expression of all of us, and it's how we all communicate. And John disagreed, said, no, or no, lad. I think
no, lad, no.
You do a better John Voight impression than I do, but to be sure, there are better storytellers and worse storytellers,
right?
But it is how our hearts are stitched together.
Yes, yeah.
So tell stories.
Yeah. We need more than just eggheads. I mean, we want the accounting to work out, but you have to grab people with a narrative. Chase wants to know, speaking of sometimes we're lemmings, sometimes we fight back. He has a question about owning the libs, a politics of opposition, banding together. He says, is owning the libs a strong enough policy platform to win the House, Senate, and keep the White House?
Of course not.
So of course not.
Look, this election, we win. Trump gets reelected, Republicans win, if this is a battle of ideas. Because the left has gone insane.
Yeah.
Their ideas are terrible. If this is a battle between socialism and free enterprise, we win. If this is a battle between abolishing the police and protecting people's safety, we win.
Yeah.
Like their positions are so extreme.
But I suppose this raises the question, because when I hear owning the libs, there is something to this, right? A politics of opposition where because their ideas are so extreme, because they're like pulling down statues and burning down the country. I wonder if what Chase is asking is it enough to just point to their craziness?
So my point on this, though, is that we have to fight on the field of ideas. I think the Democrats want to make this election entirely a personality election, and they wanted a referendum on, do you like Donald Trump, yes or no? There's a reason Joe Biden is hiding in his basement.
Right.
And it's actually, I don't think that it's senile, that he's senile and has dementia. I think they've made the decision. They think they're winning on a personality popularity contest on Donald Trump. And so they just figure, all right, why, if you're winning, don't mess with it.
Yeah, right.
And so from their perspective, they would characterize it as sort of owning Trump. Let's just make it all about him. Look, you and I both have fun on Twitter, and I
own the occasional lib. Nothing wrong with that.
But I try to do it. I know you do too. Actually, on substance and issues.
Yes.
So if it's a question of do you have the guts to actually take them on? Yes, that matters.
Yeah.
Do you have a sense of humor and be fun about it? Do you see the Portland rioters are now complaining they want like the government to fund equipment so they could riot? And look, I saw that and I tweeted it out and I said, absolutely, I agree. I'm more than happy to give it to you. Every one of you that engages in violence, I'll give you a taxpayer-paid orange jumpsuit.
3 hots and a cot.
That's exactly right. I mean, it's, but it needs to be on substance.
Yes,
there's also a point
right.
to that. When I'm saying that, I'm making a point that these are violent criminals that should be incarcerated.
That's right.
You can have a little bit of fun with it.
Yeah.
And you probably should.
But it's got to be grounded in something real if it's going to be effective.
Just saying you suck is not a great message.
Yep.
And it frankly is how leftists, I mean, that's basically what they say to Trump is they just hate him. I mean, they're just...
Orange man bad is what they say.
Orange man, I mean, that's just, they just scream primal rage. Yeah. But look, how many Republicans are actually engaged in a real battle of ideas right now?
Yeah.
And what I'm urging the White House, if they let it be a personality contest.
Yep. That's what the left wants.
That's what the left wants. And I think that's much more dangerous than focusing on ideas that work.
Yeah. Well, we will have to leave it there. We'll see you on the next episode. I'm Michael Knowles. This is Verdict with Ted Cruz.